Very good gamers, how are we? This is Games and Chill, and we are in a new video with characters who stopped deserving. This video I did once before had a lot of repercussions, but also in Genshin and in the gacha in general. You know how I explained in other videos that companies play the emotional dependence factor and the psychological root factor. In the characters and a lot of people, when you tell her that her Chinese monkey doesn't work, they get angry. They pull out the torches and act like you're messing with a person from their own family and their own blood. And no, they're not. They're pixel friends. You have to learn to enjoy not just Genshin, but of all the porridges and above all of the people of real life and of reality in general. But apart from that and that, there will be knives in the comments.
I think you shouldn't have said that.
So, whoever likes gossip will come down and see the comments, because you'll see. Today, we are going to see the characters of Genshin Impact who have ceased to be worth it. Either because there is a character that does its function better, or because the character itself does not provide anything, or some other surprising reasons that will interest you, and that I make myself, and that you will see in the video. So leave a good like, a good ulti from Bennett, subscribe, leave a good comment for the algorithm. And today we go with the characters that cease to be worth all over Genshin Impact. Well, let us start by starting with a character with a Ayaka, since I think one of the editors, well, Tuma is main Ayaka, likes it until the end. You know they don't let us use Ayaka in the Abyss. They don't let us use Ayaka Permafrost, which is the best permafrost of the game, but in this imaginary theater that is currently in effect while watching the video, they let us use permafrost. In fact, Ayaka is as a guest character. What is it? That really imaginary theater, I believe for Genshin players, is not an endgame mode that has earned respect. Of players like the Abyss, if it's not an endgame mode of entry, I take my Protohemas. I give their Papa 3 Altis and all the enemies disappear and win. The theater is not a real test. It is not a good endgame. It has no difficulty. It only has an incredible expense of resources, and Ayaka today, I will not say. Maybe if you stop using permafrost again, you can come back, and maybe in NATLAN. Well, maybe in some reverse retreat team it can work. But here's the point. In NATLAN, they are going to release several cryo characters that are already confirmed, more those that we do not know. You know that there are many characters besides the trailer, as for example, Xianyun, Gaming, Shiori or Emily, who are new characters who didn't come out in Fontaine's trailer with Fontaine's characters. And just like in NATLAN, not only will cryo characters come out, but we'll have surprises even with some cryo carrier criping. Ayaka, Doctor. So to start the video and that you have the context, Ayaka today and Tastes Apart is a character that does not recommend and that within what is most used can give efficiency to an account, or that has some other barriers. With the rest of Ayaka characters has ceased to be worth it. Now if you claim that you will cut me, whoever likes a character that takes him to heaven, this video is not of taste. This video is of objectivity about characters, how they work and how much they can provide us with an account. Jin today has his C2 that gives you attack speed, his C4 that lowers resistance to Nemo. Not bad for a Yao and Scaramouche, but the best in slot teams with Xiao and Scaramouche are much better with her. Faruzan, Bennett, Furina, Xianyun in the case of Xiao. And with Scaramouche you can take Kazuha from sub DPS and some combinations. More and besides that as a role of healer to Nemo, and in the case of Jin with the Favonius can be battery already today is enough. Worse than Xianyun, so Jin and in the no longer worth it in front of Xianyun, who is a must pull and is one of the best. I'm not going to talk about Travelers because less you know Andro's Traveler isn't worth any. Lisa is a sub DPS Electro that doesn't make it better than Fischl. Does not do better than Baidu, does not do better than Ye. In fact, is a kind of Ye only with the ulti instead of with the Elementarian. Doesn't do better than Kuki as an exploiter of hyper blooms besides not curing. Does not give you a contribution beyond lowering 15% the enemies. And being a sub DPS Electro with which Lisa has not only not stopped to be worth it, but literally to this day does nothing better than any other Electro character we have. Barbara, there are 2 5-star Hydro healers that are Shizwine and Kokomi, yet Barbara isn't really bad at all. Bloom teams, but usually people prefer Kokomi for versatility, though really the real best in slot, and not even the best in slot because it's worse than Mona, but the real utility of Kokomi today is in Bloom and Permafrost. That is not used, with which Barbara is true that it has ceased to be worthwhile, has its functions, but as soon as you have a If anyone wants to play Kaya like carry because he's obviously below Rylsley. Obviously it's below Ayaka, but specifically as sub DPS, I think it's totally below Ganju's sub DPS, and Rosaria sub DPS that does the same thing as Kaya with more damage, bigger scale, and generates more energy being able to carry a Favonius. So Kaya totally stopped being worth it. Diluc. To see here, I'm going to summarize, and you think I don't know if the video will last 40. I have 5 minutes, but Diluc in the end is a carry pyro, the best in slot of the carry pyro today, you know. That is divided between Alakino and Gaming, and as third place Yutao here, I will include all the carry pyro with which already. We're not going to repeat the carry pyro, but it's not going to be as simple as it is good, as it isn't one of the top 3 carry pyro discarded. No. Go. Within the teams of Diluc has melted in general, and melted inverse teams have not triumphed much in Genshin Kyoisan NATLAN, lift on the melted burn over burn and things like that. In the case of Diluc is melted, about Creo, so it won't even be improved. And besides, Diluc plays Doubleman, with which today the best team of Diluc is doing downs with Kaikshainyon, with which Diluc doesn't just stop worth it for being a carry pyro was. In my time, leave in the comments who is in all of those who knew and lived the golden age of Diluc, when he was the best character of the game and won for 2 weeks, but today Diluc has ceased to be worth it for gaming that also. It's a 4-star, so Diluc is ruled out, and talking about the rest of carry pyro, most of them really are below Alakino, by Yutao, and gaming in general all. Razoroi? We just talked about him on the banner in the video recently. Of the 4 stars will be over there on screen, but in short, Razor is physical, and his Electro in physical is worse than the Feminine himself, and of course that Eula, who is the physical queen, and in the Dendro, because in the end in field can explode Hyperloom. More at the same time, but there are infinite Hyperloom teams better, with which of course, and I think you all know it, Razor has ceased to be worth his equipment, but in the end would not enter into something indispensable by an Amber account. Your DPS Nuka that can explode the Bunny Mail is not really worth Amber anymore. I won't explain that other character. I do better is that literally Amber was always one of Genshin's worst characters. We followed Bendy, of course. Bendy doesn't have to talk much because it's more than clear by the use of the players. Bendy is the Archont and Nemo is the Archont and Nemo. Only Archont that literally no longer used, that nobody wants, and that doesn't give sales, and Bendy in the end serves to put together, but no. Together big enemies serves to put Green Shadow, but Green Shadow sticks any and Nemo and generates energy, but Linnet generates more energy than Bendy, being a 4-star free giveaway on Fontaine. So Bendy has actually left totally. Worth depending on Anemo Green Shadow gathering enemies. Kazuha makes it more and better buffer, more together, better sucrose. It does quite well and buffer quite a bit more than Bendy, and surely we will have in the future more Anemos. Sorry for Bendy, but concretely this Archon has stopped totally worth, and for the imaginary theater that many characters ask of you. Can be used for floor 9, 10, 11 of the Abyss that you want to clean them quickly to reach 12, and remove Protogemas can be worth. But beyond that, it is already far below the rest of Anemos, including the 4-star ones as you see in the fall. I don't know how high you're watching right now. I guess you're gonna watch the whole video from start to finish. A good like, a good ulti of Bennett, and subscribe for the channel to explode is recommended to grow to see, so that a lot of new users and a lot of people are coming to the channel to keep us exploiting, and NATLAN being the best nation for the channel. And for the players of Genshin, but as you see it, goes a little in chronological order. If you see, I'm starting with characters more, and the end as it will be more recent characters and even speculations of Kenichi Molani. We follow Xiangling. Of this whole list is the first character I will put you around here, who is Jesus Christ. Xiangling has not stopped worth it. Xiangling is the best sub DPS today, along with Yellen, Ye, and some other better sub DPS, Furina as well, and Nahida of everything. The game so Xiangling has not only not stopped worth. Xiangling arrives on the banner of Nimile. Xiangling totally deserve. His C4 and his Chi X Taker to Heaven is the first character that not only is worth it, but surely until the Pyro Archonte will continue to deserve the full penalty and still exist the Pyro Archonte, and if in a hypothetical case the Archonte Pyro is a 5-star Xiangling will continue to deserve the penalty. Baidu, we all thought it would improve Sumeru's reality. Sumeru is that the main Dendro teams that are played are Hyper Loom without Baidu, and a Grave without Baidu. Any mix of an Anemo, 2 Electros and a Dendro or 2 Dendro. An Electro the highest rotation damage of today's aggravation equipment. Poor Yai has it with Yai AFK, who is Yai official Nahida Baiju, and is a very fun AFK, so Baidu has been seen. Quite displaced is not a bad sub DPS, but the function of the Electro element falls on other characters differently. Because Baidu in the end is kind of Xingqiu, and we would say, but Xingqiu is very strong already. But the function of the element is not the same, since the Electro to activate Quicken and hence Spry or a Grave works differently than the application. Hydro to vaporize above that you need much more Hydro, and need a clear chain of reactions unlike Quicken. That with both wing elements come madness damage reactions, then Baidu is a displaced character, not that there is. But is very displaced, is not a rider of the apocalypse, and in Theoris is in the park. Medium not high Xingqiu, despite the existence of Furina Yelan Xingqiu, remains Jesu Christ arranges many accounts and will deserve. I don't think they're gonna get any more characters that look like this, like I said. So Triad or Trinity of Xingqiu Furina. Yelan Zok Xingqiu will always deserve the penalty. Xiao 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 has seen an upgrade with Xianyun and his team with a Xianyun Faruzan Furina or combinations that are because he has several, yet his teams are not at all bad like carry. Today is the best carry Anemo above Scaramouche if we talk about Xianyun C2, more weapon with multi-party damage. That can get to have quite more area than the loaded Scaramouche, so Xiao, we would say that you already know that the characters of Liwei are the favorites of Joyovers, and many here will think not Phil Xiao has ceased to be worth their carry like Novelet. As Alikino, who are Jesus Christ, yes, but is the best carry Anemo has not been overtaken by any character perhaps. His team doesn't enter the 8-9 best, maybe 10, 11, 12 according to the circumstances, but he's the best carry Anemo. So who? Want to take Xiao to heaven and play his team with Faruzan Xingxik Xianyun and their Furina? Bennett or some other character might say that Xiao Joyovers has achieved his goal, and his favorite characters the Yaksa and the Liyue characters end up triumphing in the end. So Xiao, with many aids, many sets for him, dedicated New Yu. To go buffing him and concretely 2 dedicated damn supports that are Xiayan and Faruzan just for him? Xiao would say that as you. Carry Anemo is the only carry Anemo, in fact today most powerful, and with higher game ceiling, so Xiao deserves Ningguang. There's nothing more to say. It's not worth it. There's Nadia. There's Tito. There's Noel. There's 80,000 things. Clay, as I said in other videos, has a team from Klee C2, Fiorina C2, Katsuha C2 and Bennett, who bursts even almost any other carry in Pyro and stays alone below Hu Tao. Of Alakino and Gaming, but still has the criterion of the carry and Pyro. Clay will not do anything else that does not do better an Alikino or a Gaming in its optimal equipment, and even with less investment, because Gaming Cone. Furina Chero, Katsuha Chero, Bennett Cone already bursts enough and surpasses almost all carry and Pyro, so Klee same criteria of carry and Pyro. Song Li is a shield. I would say that it can be worth it for people who want to go straight ahead full W and not worry. For avoiding is to say, who wants to play Genshin does not even become 20% how difficult it is Dark Souls, but enjoy of the mechanics of dodging and having a bit of encouragement of emotion in the combat, as one could say that Song Li no longer provides a lot to the most late accounts or to the most skilled players, but Song Li is worth it for new accounts or people. He doesn't want to worry about getting hit, so Song Li is worth it. Unlike Baidu, still has a very high unitary damage to the playing height we are in. Fischl has been used, the Golden Company, set unlike Baidu, and Fischl is very good driver or applicator activator. Basically, it puts a lot of its element in a correct way, and very well for aggravating equipment, especially aggravating, and electro-charged combines quite well with Novelet, and both Fischl's own damage as gross damages. Then the damage of reactions according to the electro-charged mastery is still very powerful, so Fischl and above Baidu. It would be worth it. and place it as one of Genshin Impact's top 6 or 7 4-stars. Bennett will go out on the bow before Pyro, and Bennett will stop being worth it. So Bennett, don't play it. Bennett's the best buffer in the game is still in Arlecchino's best in slot that's second. Oh. Or third best team of the game, best in slot of Gaming, third quarter best team of the game, and has quite a few combinations. Outside Hyperbloom or outside Novelette, incredibly powerful. Bennett is very complicated to dethrone and see what happens. With Bennett and Xiangling in Atlantico, I'm very curious. Bennett of course is worth more than any other. Everything Genshin Impact. Tartaglia here, we will gather Tartaglia and Ayato because the reality is that Tartaglia and Ayato, they're the same as the same equipment, and more or less those equipment have almost the same damage by rotation. What's going on? There's Novelette. What's going on with Novelette? That Novelette teams are totally different from the Tartaglia and Ayato. Tartaglia and Ayato go with Bennett, Xiangling, and Onanemo, and a conventional steaming and Novelette equipment. Is a carry of Hydro Monkey, where all liability for damage falls on him, with which obviously at the level of damage. Gross Tartaglia and Ayato have already ceased to be worth, but at least, and whoever is a fan of Tartaglia can still play that. Equipment that for new accounts, and in the same case similar to Xiangling's minimum investment, can really give you results. Amazing so for people who have a Tartaglia Chero, Kazuha Chero, Xiangling Bennett, that is free. No longer worth it, but can be given a small opportunity like Songli for very new accounts. But reality is that steaming equipment already, there are much better equipment of damage. General Hydro Novelette exists and has opaque everything, and like we saw in Fontaine's kinematics that it was a wink, and you'll be seeing here in the background literally the aim of Joyovers. Novelette crushed Tartaglia, and they didn't obviously happen to be totally on purpose. Noel basically 4. Of course, it was no longer worth it because Diamanda will carry exist Navia and Ito, and in fact today people prefer Navia, and well, you know what I explained about the roofs and so on, but in the end, it also matters what people decide to play, and especially the fact that many very powerful characters are more compatible with one character than another, because although I objectively didn't get a roof on each other talking about Navia and Ito, really new characters that might possibly come out. Better benefit Navia than Ito, who has a close team, so here discarding Tartaglia to Yato in exchange for Novelette, and discarding Noel Navia Ito of the 3 who most power the future, has choice of the players, and above is waifu, and you know, you have 2 great reasons to choose Noel stopped being worth it, and whoever likes me to take him to the side. Sky on his close team, but today the transport diamandable par excellence is Navia, is the character that does deserve that. Chi-Chi comes very well because we also encompass cryo healers who do practically the same Chi-Chi. Diona, Charlotte and I'm going to bring the conversation to Layla too, because it's a cryo defensive contribution that doesn't cure but puts you on. A very strong shield that makes you practically immortal because it goes triple life and point because well Chi-Chi is worse than Diona. Diona is moderately useful because cure puts shield cryo, applies generates a lot of energy, cleans you, the element reduces you. The cost of stamping to be able to dodge more, but really today with Furina and the current goal, what you want is to over. Healing, you want a lot of healing even though it overtakes you, and this Diona doesn't do Diona cure enough. Little cure takes very slow to a single character, and then there's Layla who can compete the shield with Diona really if you want. A shield nothing more than Layla, but really because of the energy that Diona generates would be better between quotation marks, but the difference is that Diona has 20 seconds of cooldown in her ulti and Layla has 12 in the elementary and 12 in the ulti. And that makes Layla can be adapted to any team then if we talk about today's Layla shield is the choice of players, but bye. Above Layla, the cryo defensive contribution par excellence is Charlotte, even though it is a 4 stars besides and gives us an advantage, and even though it does everything right to Chero or Cone, with which it is not worth Chi-Chi, is not worth Diona, and it does not deserve. Layla's worth under Charlotte, who's going to give us everything we need, and we rule out quite a few characters. Shonkyun, Kaya's Criterion. There are other cryos already, both DPS and sub-DPS, that although they do not imbue you as Shonkyun or do not reduce the mechanical cooldowns of Shonkyun that was forgotten and not reused throughout Genshin Impact less with the C6. Better Rosaria, a Ganju sub-DPS, you have infinite characters, your Anshenhi. Ganyu, if it is the best sub-DPS talking about damage. Krios Gross is Uriously's best in team slot, and has one of the best permafrost thing I repeat is almost not there. Being able to use permafrost, but it is a more comfortable Pele than Ayaka. Because what Ayaka are nerfying is that if you're last, da no impacta complete an enemy URF. But Ganju invokes a very large area that allows you to really an enemy, yes. Most of the damage above Ayaka can be eaten, with which Ganju generates similar damage less than Ayaka according to which. But its use is more comfortable, with which Ganju Kokokabra is not only worth it but also if above Ayaka, because of the fact that he has not been affected so much by this kind of changes in the Abyss, but also Ganju always had their whole life teams melted, and now with NATLAN and the goal of melting over burn, and even with Arrow, Emily Ganyu is going to improve a little bit more so Ganju, not only because she has skin plus, and she feels great, a little more funness, and because it is from the TU Ganju, it could be worth depending on how the cryo evolves, especially by the exit of the inverse melts, but also by the theme that within what Ganju fits can be the best in slot of the second best permafrost of the game as bristly sub DPS that can be more comfortable than Ayaka, and also has the best third permafrost of the game with Ganyu, Carry Pink Aria Kazuya Mona the Morgana 15, that I explained to you in many videos. Ganyu has paint and potential to deserve Albedo Shori Shot. Albedo, we will make or remove the theme personally. I recommend Albedo gives me. Just like Shori does a little more damage as sub DPS if you get it C2, is very dependent on the cone. Shori is uncomfortable. You don't build well, your mixed scaled attack with defense isn't so bad, but you have the problem that it doesn't snapshot with Bennett, and this hurts her a lot, so Shori really isn't worth repeating. Shori isn't worth it is a character of stuffing they pulled out a little bit for the people who took out Navia think that Shori is going to be the best in slot, but I recommend Endless. Sometimes Albedo over Shori as much as for milestone teams as for Navia teams, so Albedo does deserve it. The penalty after so long for the men Gios Diona is not worth it, that I have commented it before as I go in order of all. The cute characters I am very sorry for themselves, but the best in slot of Permafrost Monkey, especially the Permafrost of Ayaka, but today the best Permafrost is Ayaka Furina Xianyun Shenhai, with which Kokomi was cute outside Kokomi deserved. But in the end, cute now is discarded, is not so powerful before was the better permanent character, but to this day it is no longer best in slot of any team and has stayed and fallen a little bit on. The video with the evolution of the entire metagame Keiching Kari Electro is not worth it. We have Raiden and Chlorind as queens. Today's Electro with damage that doesn't make sense, devastating, so completely discarded. Keiching does nothing that Chlorind or Raiden don't do better in any kind of team. Your cross is totally worth your cross taking to heaven 1 of 1. The best 4 stars would technically be below Kazuha, but if you want 2 Anemos, 1 on each team, you could play Kazuha in one, his cross in another. But many will say good fill. But there is Xianyun, then Sucrose, and a little bit of F. But I would say Sucrose with the potential that has being 4 stars even for new accounts that do not have Kazuha and don't have Xianyun can be a settlement your cross for quite a few months until the indicated banners arrive. So your cross is worth the chin, yeah, not worth it is a physical sub DPS of Pyro element that doesn't make sense because the physicist goes with Cryo and Electro for the superconductor of the characters of the game. Rosaria would say that it could arrive. It's true that we have a lot of Cryos. It's true that Cryo isn't used, and it's true that Natlan will come the melts. Inverse, I have commented that Xianyun Falls is not worth it because Rosaria is better, but really, today as sub DPS Cryo, Xian he is better than Rosaria in all aspects, both in generating energy and in gross damage. As in Bufara to the team in Ganyu as sub DPS of gross damage would also be better in bristly teams, with which Rosaria I would have a minor point in favor of it being worth it. But Rosaria really today is overshadowed by other characters. Rosaria, like some other characters, are in limbo like Zhongli, as I think it was that I said Xiao, though Xiao as carry a Nemo. Well, Rosaria is in limbo. Rosaria is in a 50-50 between mediums, depends on how is an account, but can contribute a lot. Hutao. I think he spoke before the Pyro carries, so we sum up to go faster. Hutao, one of the top 3. Carries Pyro of the game, and also its gameplay is unique because Arlecchino goes to normal attacks, Gamming goes to full descending. And Hutao today, with his team Furina Yelan Xianyun, who is his best in slot, his best team of the whole game, super frenetic and fun combo of 2 normals, a very frenetic loaded downward jump. And for those who have better hands, This can take you to the limit and maximize the damage at crazy. Hu Tao is fun. Hu Tao is one of the most accepted of all. Play for the community of the most beloved and the most asked ones. Serves Hu Tao to serve Hu Tao references. So you knew that Hu Tao isn't such a plan. Hu Tao still deserves the penalty after all the game changes is worse objectively. In ceilings at Gaming and Arlecchino, but there will be people who do not like Arlecchino Gaming and are with Hu Tao or want to take to heaven. The 2 or 3 carries Pyro Kazuha of the best characters of the whole game deserves, and will be worth forever. No. You have to explain why is objectively the best Anemo of the whole game is more neat, one of the mandatory characters in it. All Genshin Impact? Yanfei criterion of carries Pyro? Here we sum up is loaded as 4 stars, has a damage. Abysmal. But will always be below Gaming, which is 4 stars, carry Pyro de Hu Tao, de Arlecchino de Clisios dat del P. Plus their function of the 2 may seem to look like Yanfei is 4-star Clee, but really Yanfei still, with all the potential you can have, is below all the rest of the carries Pyro is not worth. A greeting to Kaitarito, who has his Yanfei icon, is the Yanfei of the Jomila community. I am very sorry, but more of the same. With Jomila is a carry unitariat against a single enemy who has many difficulties, has quite impediments, has the one who cannot fight well against several enemies, and has that there are 2 or 3 carries Pyro that also overcomes the damage. Unitariat de Jomila as Arlecchino herself as Hu Tao as Gaming against an enemy. Then I am very sorry for the main Jomila, but today Jomila is not worth a greeting to by Omega Mod of the channel. Also that it is main Jomila. That brings her to heaven. A greeting to Chris, who is also another creator of content main Jomila. Jomila as character no. It's worth the Zoma. It's not worth it if it has 2 functions to be a shield and to play crackling. There's not a character that explodes. Correctly crack them like we talk about a Kuki, but Pyro and Zoma is not that. Zoma character has difficulties. It does very badly, depends on its ulti, depends on a lot of power generation because it has AD cost. Its shield is very bad, and if you go triple mastery to crack the shield is useless, with which the defensive contribution is null, unlike Kuki who cures you, yes or yes no matter what the life damage and whatever. And not only that, but the part crackle me up. By Zoma the shield part, if you play it you want to play triple life with Favonius, and such is still worse than the Ini. The An continues to serve it less for the Pyro element than maybe a Kirara for aggravation teams and everything, so that today they tried to lift Zoma with their teams to crack. But Zoma is not worth not contributing anything. Eula very quick is the best carry, the physical carry of the game, but you don't use the physicist. We could put Xiao's criterion not because. Today Eula is quite far away from Xiao, even though Eula has her team with Mika Xing's Furina C2 and Raiden, but on a daily basis. Today waste a Raiden for the Eula team, unlike being able to play Raiden, Hyper, carry Raiden National, or some another variant of Raiden teams playing with Furina, C2 Nahida, C2 and Baiju, and a Hyper Loom as the core of the Sino team, of chlorine of which it is equally very rosy. That core makes that Eula in the end very unlike Xiao, and above all by difference of potential. And Roof say that it is not worth Eula because no one plays physical, and could never lift. That is not an element. It's a mechanics. Could never lift Raiden, one of the 2 best electro carries in the whole game to count C3 and Gunnis. It's Roof, and many want to reach that potential to reach 1,000,000 damage, and people like they. Big numbers and the competition between quotes, like carry as the best carry electro of today's game of Raiden, is Clorinda. But Clorinda is more tied to playing with Furina, Nahida, Baiju. In that core, that was the previous core of, if not can play Clorinda. Hyper carry isn't bad at all, but Raiden doesn't objectively beat Clorinda's best team on Roofs today if we talk. And we compared C3 and weapon, but then talking a little bit more about community of versatility of clean mechanics equipment. Even taste at skill time, elegance, designs, development, history, even Raiden as I said it did. Clorin, timeout, I'm sure it'll stay in the gamer's memory. So Raiden of course deserves the penalty. Sayu saying criterion of healers Anemojon and Xianyun Zhong is not worth it. Xianyun is a character. That makes infinitely better and enables you a barbarity of teams of descenders above Sayu and Jin. Everything that's Gileran and Memos is below Xianyun today, with Gomi and Gomi I told you before Barbarous at the end. Doesn't do anything that with Gomi doesn't do with Gomi is not bad, but with Gomi, it was mainly used in 2 variants of equipment that are mainly bloom equipment or some hyper bloom and permafrost equipment that are in disuse or not used, and that, in fact, the best in slot today, Xianyun Furina and Kashinja of Permafrost, or the same but with Ryotsli, so really that, with me, it's not worth much anymore. I know that there was a lot of emphasis on the issue of how important it is defensively and so on, but so many defensive supports and healers have already come out, like Charlotte, who being 4 stars from 0 gives you a quite powerful defensive Sustan, and just as it is catalyst with which the Dragon Hunter Xianyun can provide you. Also, Provitz the Dragon Hunter can provide you with the Son of Yesteryear, can provide you with the Geo Armada, as well as with Mai. Charlotte can do the same thing that today with Gomi, now definitely yes. And not because it exists, if it is cool, that if it is cool doesn't do anything. It's basically a douchebag. If it's cool with Gomi, I'd say personally that I'd stop in general from deserve it. Penalty on some occasion with a criterion similar to that of Zhongli in some very new account that wants to be a defensive contribution. Spectacular, but for the rest no longer worth. Goru would say that if you go for the triple milestone team Geo, if it deserved, the penalty off the triple milestone Geo does not contribute anything on any Sara account, of course, is for Raiden Hypercarry team. To this day, nothing more, with which, if you go with your Raiden C2 or C3, and you want to play it in Raiden Hypercarry, Sarah totally deserves. You don't like Raiden Hypercarry, you don't want to take it out C3 or your Raiden C3 is played in other teams and you are already comfortable Sarah Chicks, which is the only thing that serves in Sarah because it would no longer be worth it because it only deserves for Raiden Hypercarry milestone. I have explained before milestone. To this day, I would say that it is no longer worth it against. Navia likes apart anyone who wants to take the milestone team to the sky that takes it, but for the fact that it is closed. Note that it will have less synergies with future characters who know Shalon and that can happen. I would say that Navia A. Today, not only for the 2 good reasons, but for the potential synergy with future characters new Navia seems. Be that it will have much more acceptance and prominence milestone versus Navia, personally would tell you that Navia already in Maiko. It is already a very good sub. DPS has very good equipment, both of pure aggravation and of overload and electrocharged, that are not used as much as mainly Hyperbloom, but the reality is Hyperblooms, there are 3 or 4 better above. From Yae teams but Al-Haytham teams to Nahida, double Hydro Cookie so in Hyperbloom is not best. In slot overload equipment is quite well, and if it is best in slot but the overload is also a bit displaced. Especially depending on a lot of Shabru's Ye Miko, and then aggravating them pure has the Ye aggravating good Afgak, which is basically Ye official Nahida Baiju, who I mentioned before is a very fun team, and is the best aggravation, but does not exceed the Hyper Bloom teams in general with which Ye is in limbo, will not enter the tier if it is worth it flatly. As a Kazuha, I'm going to leave her in limbo right in the middle. If you like her very much, Ye forward, take her to heaven. She won't go. She doesn't deserve the penalty because really, if it has a very strong and very good performance, but the reality is that it is not indispensable for. Yae counts intermediate in limbo, maybe yes or no, according to your taste that made Carti and Nemo to put a very big punch. Xingqiu Furina will never cease to be worth it, is still a must pull, is still next to a Xiangling the 2 best sub DPS from all over Genshin Impact, and next to Furina, the 3 best sub DPS from all over Genshin Impact, will definitely deserve it. The penalty in any account Quirarara. There are people who use it in Bloom, or in a Gravity teams as a little shield to apply inside. But obviously, Quirara does everything rather worse than Bayujo, just like Yao Yao. In fact, Baiju is the fusion of Yao Yao and Quirarara. We literally know that Baiju's shield is not the best thing in the world, but once every 2.5 seconds it prevents you from resisting. And when they break the shield that is very weak, you heal yourself, with which in the end the function of the shield there is like this. That Quirara within what fits as an applicator in general, has ceased to be worth under Nahida of the Traveler, of Andro even, and of the future Emily that will come out soon. and as shield or defensive contribution is below Baiju. In all aspects and would compete with Yao Yao in some teams, you prefer more to Yao Yao for heating than to want alone for the shield, so in my opinion, I want there's a wonderful fabulous skin that will be right at the event but stop deserving. The penalty there are many more inside that give you a better defensive contribution and a better application of inside offensive alloy. It's the best character in the game to bring her up to heaven, the best carry. Cryo of all Genshin Impact I think is a before. And then on all accounts, I'm so sorry for the people who couldn't get Aloy in the spectacular collaboration that we had in Genshin, so this will also be a TikTok or short, because obviously Aloy is the worst character in the Shenhe game. I'm so sorry. Shenhe stopped being worth. It would be above Rosaria as sub DPS, but today has two main teams that are the inverse melts, but not NATLAN's new goal that will be melted over burn, but the pure melts of two cryos. Two pyros, those teams are going to stop playing because they're going to start playing melted. No. They let us play permafrost, so Shenhe today has gone down a lot. I know that many people want to take her to heaven. I know that many people still have a dilemma because it doesn't prove things about the triple attack, or take it as sub DPS and from. Then in all cases wins the sub DPS because no one understands the charges and does not bother to read or understand them. That when Shenhe's arrow is announced, and we'll explain it again in the build so that people can check it out, but the case with Shen, he literally went from being some better characters in the game today to being totally in disuse, with which, if we take into account the current context, Shenhe is not worth it, because you are not going to play permafrost, you do not play almost with Retidos. Inverses of two cryos, dos pyros, and the melted inverses that are going to be played and are going to be meta are those of melting on burn, where Shenhe doesn't get in much to help, so I'm sorry, but Shenhe, if he doesn't change the trend of the game, stops. Totally worth Yunjin buffer of basics is not worth it, has no best in slot, and today even if you play a Bennett, Gell, Fiorina, I and mine are 1,000 times better, so I'm so sorry. Yunjin is not worth anything. Kuki is totally worth the best 4 stars and the best characters. From the game to Kuki, taking it to the Hyperbloom's era sky of the team's total defensive contribution has the 6th that the keeps 1 of life. Kuki is one of the pillars and riders of the apocalypse of Genshin. Impact Ayato himself, forgiveness. And there are better steaming equipment today because of the combination of characters we have, so I'm really sorry, but Ayato tier de Tartaglia Collei himself, a little bit of Kirara better applicator Collei, is worse than the Traveler Dendro. Worse than Emily. Actually, Emily's going to be a Cholai with steroids on all teams. Worse than Inajida and future characters. Collei discarded and Zima. Collei, do not use it. Do not go up for much. The truth better if you are a free character inside. Climbing the Traveler into Dori, basically to Dori, is not worth it because it does the same thing as Kuki, but worse cures more or less. Follows the team's energy and exploits the Hyperblooms much worse than Kuki. So nothing Tignari. This is interesting. Let's talk about Alhaitham's Tignari and Quinishis. I'm gonna rub my hands right here. It's very interesting to talk about this because, in my opinion, I said it, the strike of Alhaitham has been greatly inflated to the part Tartaglia because for the same reason has a team that with the minimal investment of incredible results, and that basically inflates the expectations and even the eyes. Talking about superficiality of the people who see it is to say you see an Alhaitham Chero with Nahida, Chero Gelano Furina, Chero and Kuki, which is 4 stars, and that's the investing slot of Alhaitham's teams, and you see the amount gross damage that can have for a new account like the International of Tartaglia, exactly the same Tartaglia Chero Kazuha, Chero Xiangling Bennett, and you say wow, and you think that's a wonder. The reality is that at least it's fine, but it's inflated because Alhaitham's constellations don't add much more damage. If you could improve by combining Alhaitham, Nahida C2-1, Furina C2 Kuki, but in that core, if you replace Alhaitham with Kignari, for example, the equipment, practically the damage is equated. Because Alhaitham has 18 seconds of rotation, but Furina has 15, Chi has 15, Nahida has 13.5, and Tignari has 12, with which the same damage Tignari does in those 15 seconds, Alhaitham do 18 delays the rotation, and you lose damage itself. Damage divided by more seconds is less damage, with which here comes a dilemma with including here Nitz Alhaitham surprises A lot of people like I say, but then Al-Haytham's roofs collide very fast, and it doesn't get better and it stays below many other characters besides that Al-Haytham himself is not the damage of the team. The damage of the team is the hyperbloom of Kuki and Faye. Another half is Al-Haytham, with which, in my opinion, I think Tignari being permanent, having constellations that serve him. Rather more than Al-Haytham, and as I said in other videos, the real potential also of the distance, and that they do not hit you being. Melee that is also a point against, because Kuki Furina Nahida's team not only subtracts your life Furina, but no, you have a shield and Kuki heals it just and necessary and only heals one character. Kuki does not cure the entire team, Tignari has all these advantages, but it is also that Kinnick looks like it will not only be played in cracking and burning teams, but that. Plus Kinnick with C2 has more general Endro carrying potential for aggravation hyperbloom equipment and Kinnish haze. Seems to literally step on Tignari and Al-Haytham, but this is speculation in my opinion. I would recommend Tignari above the Haytham, and Al-Haytham don't inflate it so much, it's very good at Chero, and it helps a lot to new accounts, but as soon as you want to go a little further, Al-Haytham is limited very quickly, so Tignari for now is worth more than Al-Haytham in my opinion here. They'll come funnels for sure, and Kinnish going to overshadow the Endro cars, especially Kinnish with C2 Nilu for equipment. Bloom if you want to play the closed Bloom team. Of course it's worth it if you don't have interest in the Bloom team. Nilu closed because Nilu in an intermediate limbo Nilu position, not much nor little nor indispensable nor deserves. The penalty Nilu intermediate position for Bloom teams? If not if you have the highest ceilings of the game, and many always, they start with you is that if not that you have played but, and you have not tried the combination, and not many people have Baiju, because Baiju today contributes a lot to but to color end, and a little more, with which is very different, obviously the Al-Haytham team, with Kuki 4 stars and with Nahida, who is an Archon Yellen, a must-pull, that a team of fate with Baiju, who is a fourth character that not everyone has in their accounts, but if it has had one of the highest ceilings of the whole game with Nahida, Yellen, Baiju. When he left Baiju, and later with Furina, C2 Nahida, C2 Baiju Hunter, of dragons that can bring even more damage to the character itself. And above all, who exploits the high problems and does. And you don't steal half of the damage from the team. It's above Al-Haytham because you get Al-Haytham and you get another carry. Inside, or a carry Nahida and Kuki continues to hold half of the team's damage to the teams, but Baiju does not do this. Nahida adds many buffos to it, but does not do the damage that Kuki and Furina does, is a good sub-DPS, but 80% of the damage. But now as a carry Electro is worth it, not because there is chlorined and chlorined in the same core, but for the gross scale damage it has if we equate Chero versus Chero, or C2 versus C2 chlorined has. Greater ceiling, the two electro carries par excellence as explained, are Raiden and Chlorind more focused on Nahida Furina. Baiju or some rare overload, but mainly this team and Raiden more focused on the national Raiden, and the Raiden carry has not been worth it under Chlorind and Raiden, for the roofs it can have for the ride. Combinations of equipment for versatility, and perhaps even for the difficulty in construction, and even for the potential. Because it is noticed that I no longer believe that they do more synergies with but in future characters. But if you notice the door open, with Chlorind to make more things that come to the future benefit Chlorind by his way of playing like Raiden, who is a Ariante, and everything that has been coming out also benefits Raiden. So otherwise it stopped worth Candace has. The very powerful Candace Oasis, but obviously as a carry in Hydro doesn't even reach the level of Cakes, and as a buffer of Basic, does not even reach the height of Yunjin according to what conditions. And if Yunjin is not 6 Candace, if Bufa better than Yunjin boot, just like a Jin is not worth one or another, Candace today design 10 out of 10 worth -1. Nahida of the best characters of the game must pool. Arcante its C2 is together with Furina one of the best constellation of all Genshin impact, so Nahida, of course it's worth it in any account, and we've talked about it already. Before it could be inside the healers or cryo defensive contributions the best shield, but to this day, Charlotte takes the palm as a cryo defensive contribution, so she and I would stop it worth less for anyone who likes skirmish is very powerful. Like carry Anemo, but really the top roof today has Shao. because of the fact that he greatly encouraged it. So, who personally likes Skiramu to take him to heaven, but same landmark Criterion and Navia, in my opinion, believe that it carries the flag of leader would be Navia and Xiao above all Xiao, because it is of the Iju, just like Navia is waifu so skirmish. In the category of milestone below, and in my opinion, it was no longer worth it, since we have another carry in MO that has more room, and more potential Faruzan criteria of dedicated supports if it is to play it with skirmish with Xiao. Or one I don't know, Xianyun DPS, or a Gaiju one punch punching 500,000. Of course it's worth Faruzan, but if you're not going to play something concrete with Faruzan Tinais, Faruzan is not worth it. If you are not going to play a team in Nemo, basically Yao is not worth it. Compared to Bayuji's good for Bloom team, some more healer equipment inside that fit inside, there is no other Gila inside apart from Baiju, but really because the theme of Baiju in the end to Giza, I have explained before who maybe is. Skipping the video, throw a little bit back because the Giza is a very interesting explanation of Day does not deserve them. Too bad, of course, I'm so sorry for the little ones. I'm indignant about the community, but in the daytime it doesn't do anything right day by day. Today has ended up being a 5-star Chingan, doesn't have a timing to explode, while the crackling doesn't reach a good. Dama, if not with the cone with mixed scaled life and attack, is not a carry because it only has 4 seconds in field, and I would have to have minimum 7 to be a good carry. Doesn't have a very high damage ceiling unlike other characters. On the same poor little equipment leave to design 10, just like Candace utility, -1 Mika summarizing criteria of support Su, and you're going to play it with Eula. Well, if it's not worth Mika, it doesn't even look like it. But I'd say no. It's worth it in the sense that there are teams of, or what they can do something similar to what the Kaba team does that would be the best in slot, but much more risky offensively. Although in the end, the criterion of playing Kabas, if you want to play the team. Bloom, if you want to play the Bloom team with neither it nor it is best in slot, is the dedicated Bloom team for her. And I've had neither the Najida nor the Bloom roof. But it has its limitations, especially on the defensive side. With which it fits is in limbo to play it whoever likes and wants to play Bloom. But I would say that there are more reasons for not to play it than to play it honestly, apart from that it supposedly destroys the constructions of the world. So it fits, I would say. It's not worth it, but for Bloom, so take him to heaven by Ju, if it's worth one of the best defensive contributions of the game to this day, more useful and has more equipment and has more best in slot. That is the best alternative of team than Kokomi. Better today than they are red, because if it's best in solid slot and not just as a substitute, because they can hit you a lot, then read I think it is but the best one of the best defensive contributions of the game, and it gives you an infinite amount of things. That's for teams inside nothing else but hold back incredible defensive at Gillen. Incredible to activate the loads of loads. De Furina can provide you the Dragon Hunter, for the team will carry you Amber for more Gillen energy ticks for. He's going to give you energy, so with the cone you have the double elementary ability as a savage, and you just have to look for life and... Linnet, although it is very strong for new accounts, I would say it is not worth it because there is Sucrose Kazuwa and from... There are many more Anemos, so right now Linnet for new accounts, yes, but below the other 3 characters. I told you Linnet would put it a little bit even in limbo all over the middle, is to say for new people who don't have another. Like I mentioned with Sucrose, maybe it's very good Liney's criterion of Car Respiro below Klee doesn't reach Alakino. Not enough gaming doesn't make it to his best team, so Liney isn't definitely worth. It is a very inflated character at least. Al-Haytham Mitatalia have a why they have been inflated, mainly because of their contribution to minimum resources and investment or makes. 0, but Liney isn't even because to do things you've seen requires his cone at least, so Liney very inflated. Quite overrated, Liney is not worth their Alachino exists gaming, and there is Hotao Freminit not worth Ula. Uri Sly Uri. Sly speak today, my god Brisley. I spoke at the beginning of the Uri Sly video, but we still have to see what such Brisley is unwrapped in NATLAN, perhaps playing Reverse Melt over Burn playing Bennett, Mavika Emily Brisley. There's no Mavica yet, which this is just speculation, so Uri Sly would put it in limbo. They haven't hit him named. An attack as direct as Ayaka has very easy its application of total damage because it is melee, and does not depend as Ayaka Ofo. An ulti that if you don't give the ulti the enemy moves, you lost your Brisley damage is gradually hitting the character who, you're hitting the enemy, hitting him, so Brisley in limbo has good potential, but we'll have to see in NATLAN new. Biret Jesucristo blessed the best carry of Hydro 5 stars of the game, and the best carry of all Genshin Impact, one of the almost 3 best characters of the game. Pity that I support is not but allows you loneliness, you abysmal, as you already know so. Defensive is a good 4 stars even if not used if you already play Cookie Bennett Xiang Young as 3 defensive contribution. In your accounts is to say, in the end, people are also looking for defensive contributions that do more than just defensive contribution, and default people play that Bennett, Cookie Xiang Young and Baiju, with which Charlotte hanging around. Not really much, her 6 Charlotte, but as 4 stars is one of the best defensive contributions today. Furina? What to say about Furina? Of course, worth it, is one of the best characters, and in my opinion is the best character of all Genshin Impact today, so Furina for your accounts is certainly worth Chabruz quickly. Criterion of neither is telling. If you want to play Overload teams, Chabruz will give you that piece of Overload equipment with Yay or some Arlecchino team Overload. That is very bad compared to Arlecchino teams in general, but the same. People like it and want to play them the same with Chlorine, just like with some team overloading me and my Chabruz is interesting. Chabruz has this curiosity of the Raiden hyper carry team that is not the best in slot with Chabruz, but gives you the alternative of releasing a Kazuha for another team. And that is important and gives you a high ceiling with which Chabruz, as neither is A. Yes, of course, it's not a very powerful Chabruz to be 4 stars, but it is a niche of overloads this. Depends on who wants to play those overload teams, Navia. I definitely said it before if anyone wants to wear the Yayo to the sky, same criterion, that is Yao better carry Geo with more potential to future gaming Jesucrist, as carry Pyro one of the best carry Pyro game and top 3 top 4 best teams of the game, talking about Xiang Young, must pull ceilings from the best healers of the game. Best healer and ammo shade Green Dragon Hunter can be played on teams other than Descending, but it enables you to all teams down the game, which is mostly best in slot by Hu Tao. Best in slot by Gaming. Second best in slot de Nubiletti de Arlecchino, Arlecchino Furina Galan Xiang Yung, or the team of Nubilet Furina Xiang Yung, and an Electro-like Fischl to play Electro Charged, so a second best team of the best cart of the Nubilete game. Arlecchino best in slot of the 3rd, 4th best team Gaming, and best in slot of Hu Tao teams. Xiang Young is Jesucristo, blessed as a character, and in fact also has the best in slot of the permafrost that are not used, but Xiang Young Furina Shen. Ayaka hypothetically Shuri is not worth as opposed to Albedo in my opinion, because Albedo as support provides you much more energy to be able to place the flower much better than the Shuri bugs. Much more uptime is to say much longer. Or when, because Kiori disappears quickly, the Shuri bugs are not worth worse than Kokomi, even if it is cool. Poor little girl came out to be another one. If she's cool, I'm sorry for the one who threw and had hopes. But, as I said, right, she seemed best carry after Nubilate the whole game, so Arlecchino of course. Hedges is quick to discard Hedges like. Carry Electro will always be below all the rest of Carry Electros, that although I have commented the same to before. Stars is interesting just as Hedges in the end is a character that good surprises is like a Yanfei for you to understand me. Being Electro but poor Yanfei that has on top of it, Hu Tao, to Kleist 2 to Liney to Arlecchino to Gaming because Hedges. The same thing has over it but Raiden's Chlorine with the same Hedges because 4 interesting stars, but it doesn't deserve it. The disposable Chlorine penalty, as explained before already, has that competition with Raiden, so Raiden Chlorine there. I'd say it's worth the Chlorine of like carry, but I think over time, as I've said several times in other videos, in this video Raiden is going to win him the Chlorine Game of Fan, and we finished it again, has an hour of video. I'm going to re-Funa for an hour video for comments. Funa per algorithm Emily, in my opinion, has not yet come out when recording this video, but I believe that Emily is going to be best in slot of burns and cracking equipment over burn and melt over burn of many NATLAN teams, with the goal that will evolve to many pyro reactions in general that we have not used so far with that, which I think Emily isn't just going to be very powerful, not only is going to be must pull, not only can you play off teams of Burning in Bloom equipment is going to be very good as an applicator, as a second born in many teams is also going to be really good. I think Emily is a character that's taking off her focus because NATLAN arrives and people want the NATLAN characters, but very careful with Emily. I think it's totally worth it, and we'll see when we see for the first time. Once the character Kachina is a character Geo seems to want to support is a Kirara of Geo for you to understand me is like. A Kirara in the end can leave you the drill doing some Geo strokes off the field, i.e. bring a little more of Kirara, but the total reality of Kachina is that it will be 4 stars is more mount than character would say it will not deserve. Worth as a character on a team, but it will be worth exploring, because it seems to be very useful to explore. Kahina and Kinish and Mualani to finish. I think Kinish is going to be the best curry in the whole game, especially with C22. Will overcome the J. Zami can be played both in the pure Hyperloom teams of Kinnick. Nahida Furina Koki as an equipment to crack mainly or burn next to Emily. Arconte, Pyro and other combinations of characters, a team of probably Mabuika. Furina, Kinish, and to know which last character according to what consonances or Bennett himself will be one of the best in slot. Of Crepitar surely and Mualani does not exceed new billet, but it does remain there at the height of gaming. I no longer explained it many. Sometimes not because it's going down. Yeah, because it's going to put a couple of well-built 500,000 bytes on you, and it's going to tear you apart. The halls, and remember that Kinish and Mualani will have their improvement when the Archon arrives, so Mualani, I think you will also deserve the penalty, not for being better than new billet, but in the sense that I also believe that until more mounts come out, Mualani goes to be the best mount of all Genshin Impact in and out of NATLAN, so little more this is shit on have come out a video hour, my mother. These are the characters that deserve and that have ceased to be worth depending on others in Genshin Impact. Little more, leave a good minute, ultimately subscribe, leave a good comment for the algorithm. Thank you from the heart, because this helps infinity. You don't know how much to the channel, to the video, to the growth, to my project in general, that in the end it is not mine, is your project, because you enjoy every day with it, and I hope to continue doing the job well and entertaining.